Welcome, welcome, everybody. Happy Friday to you all out there. We welcome you to the Morning Update Show. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. It is July 17th. We're moving through the month of July, and today we have a great show lined up for you as always. You guys know I got to throw it over to my guy, Big O. Big O, how are you today? Happy Friday, brother.
Yeah, it's Friday, and, in true Seattle fashion, the sun was out yesterday, and now today it's cloudy and rainy. First of all, I want to welcome everybody who's watching the Morning Update Show across all platforms. We heard you. It took a minute, for us to get it all in place. But a lot of people were like, hey, you know what? You're only on Facebook. Why not on YouTube? And why not on Twitter or different things like that? And we're very happy today to welcome all of our viewers from across the different social platforms. I think sometime next week you'll even be able to go to our website if that's your preference and watch the show there. A lot going on. We've got Marcus Harrison Green of the South Seattle Emerald in the building, and he's become a regular fixture here on the show.
Yeah,
talking about not only what's going on in South Seattle, but Seattle and state of Washington as a whole. So I know we'll be going over some headlines with you. And then in the second segment is my interview with Council Member President Gonzålez, and man, had a good interview with the council member president. Lots of questions. We had a good time too. It turns out, man, that she's got a real good sense of humor. So we were sitting there joking a bit on the interview. It was pre-recorded earlier. And, I was asking her, I was like, man, you down in City Hall, I know you guys got a lot of secrets that you know over there, man. Who ordered the East Precinct closed? She's like, man, we trying to find out too. And then, of course, Triana, you did an interview with Lady A.
Yes, I'm excited to be airing this interview. We were able to catch up with Lady A and one of her producers right here from Seattle just a couple of days ago, and so we'll get that story. I know a lot of folks have been seeing kind of some controversy between the names of Lady Antebellum, the band, and a local and now nationally known performer, Lady A. You know what I mean? So she's Seattle-based, but folks know her all over the nation, man. She's toured and done amazing shows, so I'm excited to be able to air that interview today, man. It was great catching up with her.
Yeah, and before we jump into these headlines, Marcus, you're from the South End, so we got to get a little bit of a hard time.
The South End Autonomous Zone, I call it.
Yeah, the South End Autonomous Zone, huh? Yo, anything south of Franklin, you know what I'm saying? Right. Or you claiming Franklin too?
I claim Franklin. I claim Franklin too. They can come through.
Anything south of McClellan, huh? you got your Autonomous Zone. But we gotta give you a hard time. And it looks like our producer Nikki, man, she set you up. You didn't get the memo that today was Casual Friday. But
this is casual for me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't know what you deem casual, but this is casual for me.
Wait, it's Friday, man. I'm looking for peace in the streets. I'm in my One Love shirt. You know what I'm saying? But let's jump right into it here. And actually, let's see do we have a clip here? Oh, the clip is already in. We got a lot of stuff going on. National headlines. And so the reason why you're here is to be honest with you for two things. One, because you represent a different neighborhood in Seattle that also is representative of our legacy community and an expanding diverse community. But two,
Trae said I was here for eye candy. It ain't just because of the handsomeness.
You got to stop lying to the guests.
Wow. Man. You know what I'm saying? These guys, man.
Oh, okay. No problem. So, man, first thing here, the other reason why you're here is a lot of news that occurs that's impactful to people in our city and our community, and we're just not able to get to it for a lot of different reasons. And so I'm glad that you're here and to be here every Friday. I'll take the first one here. It says Trump administration cuts CDC out of data collection on hospitalized COVID-19 patients.
Yes.
What's that all about?
Yeah, so currently, well, I shouldn't say currently, but previous to that announcement, all hospitals had to report data, the numbers essentially of their COVID-19 infections. They would report that to the CDC. The CDC would make a collection nationally of all the infections. Now Trump is saying that, no, we don't want that to happen. Don't do that, just report it to us directly. And so now there is no middleman between the numbers going on at the hospitals, which are a huge surge, huge uptick of COVID-19 cases, as you know. They just go directly now to the government who reports them.
What reasoning did the administration give for cutting the CDC out of the data collection process?
So the reason that they're essentially giving is that, hey, we don't need this middleman anymore. We want to have more accurate numbers. Grant you, the CDC is fairly accurate. No other past administration had ever doubted their numbers. So most pundits are saying that this is a way that they feel that Trump can kind of massage the numbers a little bit and show that, maybe these things aren't quite as bad as everybody knows that they are.
Right. And speaking of numbers and everything that's going on with COVID, in our local section here, we got an update from Jay.
Yeah, good old Jay. Everybody's on a first name basis with the governor now at this point.
Man, after these trying to communicate with these people for months, it's our guy. You know what I'm saying? Number 2 here, national headlines. It says Asheville. I'm assuming Asheville, North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Man, I went to college down in North Carolina.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and actually, I went to a historically black college and university.
My bad, but let me take that back.
Exactly. Boy, you talk about getting flamed on the internet. Trae, I done went to Howard. You know what I'm saying?
Repping today.
Much love. I love that. I love that.
Well, the reason I say Asheville is I actually studied geology in college, and so we did a lot of camping and surveying all the way up there in the mountains in Asheville, North Carolina. So I've been there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I walked the turf. Tell us about it. It says Asheville approves reparations.
Well, as you know, Asheville is an 83% white population. They have come out and their city council unanimously passed a resolution saying that they will provide reparations for the black community of Asheville.
I saw something on it. It said North Carolina City, and if I had to have guessed, which I did yesterday because I only saw a headline, I would have been like, was it Raleigh-Durham? Maybe a small town, Princeville, one of the first black cities in North Carolina after the end of slavery. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
would it be Winston-Salem, Charlotte? I would have never thought Asheville.
So what probability would you have put at Asheville? What would the odds have been if you was a betting man?
I'll just be honest with our viewers. I less than 5%. I probably would have named 20 cities, even some Wilson or Rocky Mount or Tarboro. And I go on and on before I would have said Asheville.
Well, immediately when you read the headline, you think this has got to be in the city where it's predominantly black.
Right.
So to hear those statistics, man, I'd love to know how they got to this point. Why did they even have it on the ballot? That's awesome that they voted.
Right, 83%, which is I want to say 20% more than what we currently have in Seattle in terms of the white population. So to me, I think that is hopeful that, hey, if we are a progressive city that we claim to be, maybe this is something we can look into as well. I don't know.
Yeah, reparations for the people, huh?
Yeah, hey, I'm gonna.
Well,
I'll take a check right now. Stop running.
Right. Well, the thing is that in Seattle, I think by the time the way that it's being gentrified here, by the time it passes, you have 1% population. They'll be ready.
Yeah, we getting close up to that 83%.
They'll be ready to pay the fee.
Yeah, pay the fee. Yes.
It's 1% left. It's a national headline, but I think this also can relate into local. Is the fear around the reopening of schools? My son getting ready to go back to college, but it especially schools here, elementary schools, kindergartens, high schools. And tell us about that, because some states are reacting differently, and then there's also a federal message, a state message, and a local message in a lot of places.
Just real quick, did you have a kid at 12, man? You got a college age kid? You just look so young, bro.
You should see when I chop the beard off.
Okay.
me and Young O hang out, and they think he the old one. I'm like, this is good stuff.
I can see that.
No, I was a young parent. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, you're still looking good though, bro. I just want to say that. I just want to give you that.
The only thing, the kids ain't put no age on me. The tear gas did.
You did look about 2 years, older after that whole incident. But anyhow, getting back to the headline though. So yeah, essentially the Trump administration and the Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, under the direction we assume of Donald J. Trump, has said that they want kids back in these classrooms by the fall. Yesterday, the press secretary for the president said that they do not want to allow science, this is a direct quote, they do not want to allow science to be in the way of reopening schools.
Wow. I saw Vice President Pence, he made that statement, and I haven't seen the whole clip. It's big these days, I'm a whole clip kind of guy, what I'm saying? And so I haven't seen the whole clip, but that one clip right there is very eye-opening.
I would call it eye closing, because I just want to close my eyes and not even
Did Vice President Pence, do you know? Was there any other kind of follow up where it's like, okay, well, we're not going to let science stop us because X, Y, and Z is empowering us. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
clearly they're saying what they're not going to follow. Is there anything that the vice president or the government is saying that they are going to follow in regards to reopening schools?
They say, and I'm again quoting Betsy DeVos, the education secretary, she was saying that she wants to do her best to reopen in places that can reopen. So places that aren't, quite having the same COVID-19 numbers. The fact is, it's very hard to do that when you don't know what's going on.
So like in a state like Vermont, a state like Montana, there's a few states where you actually have a decline. But that's a very small part of the population right now.
Extremely small. And I mean, you have a place like the Los Angeles Unified School District where you have teachers who are updating their wills, thinking that they might have to go back into these classrooms, which are vectors of disease.
I want you to look to the left because you should see the shock on Triana's face.
No, I'm over here,
That's real.
We talked about this a little bit, but as a mom, as a parent, and I know my kids are younger, 14 and 6, and I'm not ready for my sons to be in that environment. I think there's too many factors that we do not understand right now. And honestly, I don't think that the general public really has much trust in the administration in the White House right now in terms of anything that's coming out from the federal level. Right. So to hear this from Betsy DeVos, to hear that this is what they're pushing for, again, I think there's a lot of parents out there that are shaking in their boots. We're not ready for that, man. And my kids will not be returning. I'll tell you that right now.
Right.
I really think, if my mama used to say years ago, if you ever want to see somebody radicalized, do something to their kids. It's a lot of people. You can't get people to recycle or care about the environment or do this and that. People will continue to pay more taxes and complain. You mess with people's kids, and that's not a Republican or a Democrat thing or anything. It's like, man, people feel differently when their kids come into play. So I think probably irregardless of the message coming out from the federal level, parents are going to always act in the best interest of their children. So, I mean, school very well might reopen, but I think that you might find a lot of schools are empty.
Right, and I will say that there has been a report, I believe it was reported on by the Seattle Times, that in King County, it is not yet safe for kids to come back. Now, who knows if that'll change in September or October.
Wow.
Depending on what part of King County, it's never been safe for kids, school or not.
You're not lying.
Let's move over to local. And speaking it there on COVID, it says Washington, I'm assuming this is Governor Inslee, extends freeze on phases of reopening till at least July 28th.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, last night he had another press conference where he was saying that he could consider, if these numbers continue to rise.
They never should have gave the gov his own YouTube channel, huh? He'd be honest. The governor said he's probably just like me in here. Can we go live?
Right.
Are we on all the channels yet? You know what I'm saying?
I want to tell you, I hear more from him than my mom at this point. Currently there's about 43,000 people in the state of Washington who are infected with COVID-19. We have over 1,300 deaths.
And just to give some context, there's over 7 million in population in the state of Washington.
Right.
And right now there's 43,000 confirmed cases.
Right. And 629 per day that we've gotten in terms of like this uptick in cases. That's the highest, and that was from late June to now, about 629 new cases per day. That's the highest that it's been since this pandemic first struck. So he's saying that, hey, look, y'all don't appear to be doing what I told you to do in terms of social distancing, in terms of wearing your mask. I don't want to comment on this setup right here. I'm playing with you. All right, I know you was looking at me crazy. But
no, I mean, we're good. We got the free COVID testing right across the street.
That's real. That's real. But he's basically saying that, hey, we're going to scale things back. He said that by Monday, things will go into effect where social distant gatherings will go from 10 to 5 people in phase 2.
So the governor came out, and I'm glad that's why you're here, because you're staying on top of this stuff. The governor had said 10 people,
right? And
now he came back again. He got on his Twitter machine,
and he said 5, and he said that no more live entertainment, indoor or outdoor.
This is something Nate Jackson. Nate had opened Nate Jackson's comedy club down there in Tacoma. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it was supposed to open months ago, and then because of COVID, it delayed, and had a big grand opening of the comedy club down there in Tacoma, and now it's closed. Like one week later. And so big shout out to Nate, man. We hoping for you and your business, and definitely want to come support you once, I guess, things open back up. But how does that impact, like when we talk about here in Seattle, things that are open? Because there's restaurants who right now are what, at 50%? They're gonna drop down.
That was not quite clear. I think that is going to stay in effect for right now. Though again, he did say that he might put another stay-at-home order and roll back.
I'm gonna tell you like this, Governor Inslee. I mean, we all roll with the punches here, but I know you're changing stuff. But if you change that to go cocktails. You know what I'm saying? You might find yourself under one of these recall things that everybody else is talking about. But I think that's the only good thing to come out of this COVID, man, is you get drinks to go.
So many people are talking about that, man. Literally, they're feeling like, yes, we're getting closer to New Orleans. You know what I'm saying?
I know the governor be wanting to tighten down on everybody, but stay away from that one.
I'm like this, as long as he doesn't roll back the beauty salons and the barber shops, because I finally got back to my homeboy's shop. I didn't get the fresh line. I can't be looking like Tom Hanks from Castaway. So please don't not roll it back.
And I mean, all communities, have barbershops and hair salons, but definitely a high number in our community, in the Black community, of solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, especially around hair and styling and everything else.
You look at a place like Skyway. I mean, it's barbershop and hair salon row. I mean, that's the majority of its business district.
Right, and so when the governor is saying potentially a stay-at-home order, that's basically where we were at in March and April, where you just stay at home.
Right.
And I think one of the biggest issues here is it goes back to, if people are not working, people aren't making money, people can't pay rents, can't pay mortgages. Once again, we go back to that. And so I think that the rest of the country is wondering, well, what are we doing in terms of the measurements around those kinds of payments? I mean, if their businesses are not opening up, again, this is what the big issue is in how do we balance COVID with the economy?
Well, I mean, a question for you then is that, the city of Seattle, we had Kara Maine Hester, PhD, here early in the week, and she talked about how broke the city is because of COVID and the impacts of COVID, right? And then, we had some laws or policies passed around moratoriums. There was an additional $600 on unemployment checks. All that investment was made thinking that around this time right now, things would be going back to normal. So now what happens if we're taking a phase backwards, if we're going to stay at home, and now people, there is no more money in the city. The federal government hasn't indicated that they're going to add anything on to unemployment, that extra $600. What's more rent? There were some people had rent moratoriums and things like that they're still on the hook for the rent. And what I'm saying, and trying to get caught up. I mean, this could really kind of be like a social economic train wreck that we're looking at going into August.
I mean, for real, it looks super grim. Without any type of federal assistance or another bailout for the people, I don't see this working out too well for us.
Wow, man, this is why you see so many efforts in terms of, what does it really look like to take back our communities, right? And so many people are like, this is why the reinvestment in communities is so heavy.
Exactly.
And so many measures around, folks have just been saying, man, just freeze everything.
Right.
At the end of the day, if people can't pay rents and then the ones who own the buildings, the landlords, can't pay their, just freeze everything across the board, because that's what's really going to give people the relief they're looking for and are going to need now.
We don't really have too much about the protests in our show today outside of the Starbucks. The Starbucks divest. Man, these guys are serious. I mean, the protesters are hopping on everybody. They went to all the Starbucks yesterday and want Starbucks to divest from any programs of supporting police and everything else. We're going to talk about that more on Monday. But one thing that we did see early on in protest season, especially when the Western Barricade was still here, it was a lot of people who, they might have had an issue with the police, they might not, a lot of them didn't. They had an issue with COVID. They were like, man, I've been waiting for my unemployment for 2-3 months. And so even though this was a protest around the value of Black lives, You found people who were just out there. I mean, they were chanting whatever, because when you talk to them, it was like, this is my only way to vent my frustration of how my life has been turned upside down around COVID. So, I mean, what we found was that, I mean, there was the key issues around the protest. Quite a few people who were there who just like wanted to yell at somebody.
Right. I mean, it was their only way to register their animosity and their displeasure with these entities and institutions that are supposed to be there for them, which we see continue to fail them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw another one out there down to Olympia, because they've had a few months, and I don't think anybody in America was prepared. You know what I'm saying? Even though these people should be prepared. Please make sure that if y'all gonna take people, close people's businesses, that unemployment computer is working again this time, and they can accept phone calls. And they're down in Olympia that they've made an investment, you know what I'm saying, in capacity. Because if that was potentially on the horizon, then we know that that website's going to get hit. The phones are going to ring down there. And let's hope that since the month of March till right now into July, going into August, that the state of Washington has made appropriate investments in unemployment security. Also, they found a way to keep the fraudsters away. You know, man, it was a lot of stuff. COVID, just like these protests, revealed a lot of deficiencies.
Well, you're talking about Olympia. I mean, you need a message to Washington, D.C. I mean, look at the inadequacy there. We got one-time, check, and some people still haven't gotten it, of $1,200. You look at what happened in Canada, where there's $2,000 per citizen for 4 months, and they're looking to extend it. Well, why can't we do that here? We're the richest, supposedly the richest nation per capita.
I think we have a lot
Canada
to learn from other countries.
Taxes 50% of your income too. So I mean, it's a different kind of setup.
You also get something for
there.
that 50%.
I always say that, man.
No,
Welfare state.
I'm just saying that it's not always easy to go apples to apples when you're talking about different countries, because they have a different tax structure there in Canada that supports different things. I'm not saying which one's right, wrong. It's just different. You know what I'm saying? So number 2 here, claims of broken promises, bigotry, rape culture at artist trust. Oh man, what's this about?
This was a light week, right? Just a cheery week. So just for background, Artist Trust is a arts organization here in the state of Washington, one of the largest, that essentially supports and gives financial resources to artists. Obviously, artists are folks who have been hit disproportionately here in the state of Washington. Annually, what Artist Trust does is they'll give usually 8 awards to folks who, artists who need it in the area. Those 8 awards amount to about $15,000 a piece, and they give 2 what they call Innovator Awards that are about $25,000 a piece. They'll have a jury of artists who will vote on who should get these awards. This year, though, they ended up abruptly canceling that, without any warning to people. So these, you had these artists who was like, damn, I'm kind of broke right now. I really need this 15 grand. And all of a sudden it's not coming in. And then they dismissed the jury, who are mainly women of color, who were voting on giving out these awards. So you had 50 artists from around the area who signed this letter to Artist Trust saying like, yo, y'all need to, 1, this is some faulty stuff. 2, you need to continue to prioritize women and people of color in leadership, because you are mostly a lily white organization. 3, you also have some other stuff that's been going on.
Oh man! And,
wow.
All the stuff that we've heard thus far is, unfortunately par for the course around organizations in this city, especially when you talk about the money is in one hands and it's not in other people's hands. And we see that a lot.
Allocating that money, yeah.
But it's big. So what does Artist Trust say?
So Artist Trust came out with some people say it was just a PR release. Other people say, hey, maybe they are trying to do something, but they basically said that we're going to try to address some of these racial inequities and so forth. And, we invite, anybody from the community to write us back and say what we need to do. So it's about 6 different women all wrote back to Artist Trust saying that, oh, hey, by the way, you have a culture that perpetuates rape and sexism, and they named out a program manager of Artist Trust. Said that he said some things I know you aren't under FCC guidelines, but I can't repeat some of the stuff that they are saying.
Yeah, my mama and them watching. She like,
right.
Ooh, that boy Marcus. I thought he was clean cut, and he on your show cussing.
Let's just say, it was.
Don't worry, Mom, I got it.
Let's just say it was kind of on some Harvey Weinstein type stuff. So
Me Too, huh?
it was definitely on some Me Too kind of stuff.
Wow.
And so,
That's never a good culture to have.
So Artist Trust has yet to respond to that as of this show. I mean, we'll see what they can come out with. But I mean, it seems like it has gone on for the span of 5, 6, 7 different years. So
Well, I'll just say this, I know about Artist Trust, and I know that, it's unfortunate when these kind of things come out, because I know there are many artists who are always, every year after year, looking for that money.
Right.
And it's really that, again, we talk about this in the nonprofit mafia language all the time.
Yes.
Just in terms of like, what you have and what your board actually represents, it doesn't represent the people that you claim to serve. And so it's so important that we start uprooting these things. And to be honest, if there's some culture that needs to be uprooted, especially in regards to anything involving Me Too, I'm glad that these women are speaking up. I'm glad that it's not going to be buried in the shadows any longer. And I'm really hoping that Artist Trust does what's necessary to really fix that culture, because that's the old normal stuff. We're talking about moving forward here.
Exactly.
That is ridiculous. I'm just glad that people spoke up.
Well, I mean, at this moment when we're telling people that they need to change when it comes to racism and so forth, I mean, I think this is also another clarion call to men and those who identify as male, that, hey, we need to also speak out against this patriarchy and everything else when we see it, and the sexism when we see it. I mean, it's rampant in this country still.
Absolutely.
Well, so I got a question there. Are there any men that are complainants, or is it all women?
Well, on the actual letter to Artist Trust, yes, there are definitely men, and there are men who are backing up the claims of some of these people as well.
Wow. Yeah, we actually did a special earlier in the week called "At the Art of the Matter." I mean, it didn't. I mean, compared, we talked to artists who like painted art during the protest. I mean, it sounds like, and we talked about the potential trauma of doing art during protest. It sounds like these people at Artist Trust were the ones who were really traumatized.
Really traumatized.
Unfortunately, it's a story that, as you said, Trae, I mean, it is a very prevalent story, whatever the organization. I mean, it's the same script, different cast.
Wow, man. So. And literally, this is in equal pay. There's literally equal pay day around the corner, right, for women's rights. So again, I'm glad that voices are feeling like they have the opportunity to speak up. That's the only way that you can uproot any kind of, negative culture like that that's going to perpetuate white supremacy or sexism in any kind of organization. Yes. So I'm just glad, again, that it's being uprooted.
Yeah, and I encourage anybody to go read the letter that the 50 artists put forward, as well as the letter of some of these folks who are, claiming these allegations against Artist Trust, and hey, decide for yourself. But it's pretty damning. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so here it is. Mayor and the police chief announced law enforcement shifts.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you can talk about this one as much as I can, anybody else on the stage here. So
I want to hear what you got to say first.
I mean, just for background, I know y'all broached it earlier in the week, but just for background, Mayor Durkin has proposed that they shift some services that are now handled by SPD, such as 911 dispatch and some other services, over to community-based control. She also, though, did some fresh salvos against the city council.
Shots fired.
claiming that, they, accusing them of governing by Twitter and bumper sticker, essentially with these slogans of, 50% defunding of the police.
I'm not even gonna go there, but somebody clapped back so hard on the mayor. Anyway. All right. So I mean, here's the thing is that and so they talked about moving 911 out of the police, but I think if you talk to people, a lot of people in the community and even people who are inside these organizations, that and it's mostly civilian in 911. I think the bigger issue there might lie within bias of people who are actually in the dispatch, as opposed to civilian control of whether it sits inside the police or not. The other thing as they're moving out is oversight. And this and that. But the reason why a lot of the oversight was with the police is so they could get instant access to information.
Right.
If you remove that department now away from the police, you know what I'm saying? If you need something immediately, there might be now a bureaucracy that's put there. I think another thing they're removing was
how well was
parking
the oversight
services.
going now?
I don't know. I mean, this is just, things that were thrown out. But I think that was one of the reasons why it was there is because they tap right into the police computer, I'm assuming. You see what I'm saying? If it's a different organization now, you just never know how that'll work. I don't know. And then there's parking enforcement, that sits there. I mean, it's crazy because that's like the one everybody's like, yeah, okay. I mean, to be honest with you, we just like to get rid of parking enforcement altogether.
Yeah,
Right.
I ain't gonna lie. We need to
defund parking enforcement. You're right.
Get a
Right.
Twitter hashtag on that.
You guys start small. Let's go with parking enforcement, right? But something else that was interesting. So those are the things that put out, and the mayor did say, he's just like, yeah, you can't govern over Twitter. I really want to say what somebody said on Twitter, but I'll leave that one alone.
I just gotta ask you both really quickly though, because we got 16 more months till the mayoral election. You got this has been the most polarized, at least in my lifetime, that I've seen the city council and mayor, kind of butting heads. Can you imagine 16 more months of this?
Oh my gosh.
Especially if we all end up being quarantined and it's just nothing but a bombardment of vitriol from both sides,
Oh my word.
Well, I mean, so here's the issue. The issue I think that the mayor has is that she's also there's also a city council that in their own way, whether there's lots of left-leaning council members and some not so left. I don't know if there's any you would say are far right. But all the city,
no, I would not say.
all the city council members have a space for empathy with the public. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, almost all of them. There's one. We ain't gonna say those names, but the problem I think that the mayor faces in the city is like, one, she doesn't know how to just sincerely apologize on things. It's like, man, you know what I'm saying? As a human being, it's like, hey, man, I haven't made always the best decisions, but we've learned from those things, and here's what we're going to do better. You know what I'm saying? And when she does do that, it doesn't seem sincere. Like the mayor, in previous shows, we talk about this. Actually, when you were on the show months ago, the mayor did a great job on COVID. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Seattle, a national leader and this and that. But even through all of that, she wasn't able to build up enough empathy with the public. Like, nobody's out there being like, she did hold us down through COVID, man. Let's not recall her. People are like, so what? That was her job. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And she's had a problem on a human level, on a humanity level. And maybe because she's a former prosecutor. You know what I'm saying? She's a DA. You know what I'm saying? That might just be her training throughout her career as a district attorney. Is that, man, a defense attorney's job is to build empathy with a jury and, saying, a defendant. A prosecutor's job is to make sure there's no empathy. Don't feel sorry for this person, X, Y, and Z. And I think that, man, some of that mentality has followed her in the city hall, because when we talk to people left or right, the right now are defending Mayor Durkin only because they don't want her to get recalled and City Hall go further left. Like, even the right don't want to defend her. They don't have any empathy for her at all.
Right,
So
it's not a strong defense. It's not like just Durkin all the way. It's more
she
like
finds herself
strategic,
on an island because it's like people find what she's saying disingenuous, even maybe when she is being sincere. And it's a big communication problem in City Hall.
Well, I'll say, I mean, as you all probably saw, like 6 hours ago, there were 3 different Democratic organizations, the 37th district, but saying that, essentially, writing resolutions saying that, hey, we need to recall.
They're kicking her.
Mayor Durkin.
The way I read it is that the 36th, the 37th, the 43rd. They're basically kicking her out the party. They're like, yeah, you no longer represent the values of our district. And I mean, it's crazy.
Right.
Like what we see happening in real time in front of us.
And hey, these aren't, I mean, and it should be said, these aren't necessarily far left organizations. These are, Democratic, the mainstay establishment Democratic Party. What passes for that in Seattle anyway.
I got something I want to throw in here about City Hall though. And when you put in there the chief and the mayor, I didn't know if you were going to bring this up, but you see that the mayor earlier this week said that controlling the police wasn't her job, right? and that's her defense. That's basically in her brief for relief against the recall.
Yeah, it was some buck passing.
And it's like the charter says, But this is why, and we'll see here in this interview I did with Council President Gonzålez, we're going to get to here in a minute. The big question I want to know is who ordered the precinct closed, because the city charter is very clear. Right. So whoever did that, it was in violation of the city charter. And okay, fine if it's closed, all right. But then people wanting to keep it closed is again also in violation of the actual charter. And so the mayor, in her wanting relief against her recall Durkin, she brings up the city charter while throwing Carmen Best under the bus,
and then
backing up and backing back over Chief Best 3 or 4 times. Chief executive, I'll be honest with you, downtown, not to get on a rant, but every good book that you read, if you're a leader, it says, man, look out the window for credit. Look in the mirror for responsibility. Yeah. And even right here, I mean, people say I do it. It's because of all these people that are here on the set, but everything goes wrong. It's usually my fault.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
In the Marines, they say leaders eat last.
As the chief executive of our city, you people lose respect for your office every time you look in the mirror for credit and you look out the window for responsibility. The buck has to stop somewhere. But the mayor brought up the charter, and so, I mean, she opened the door. We want to know who closed this precinct, because they violated the city charter. They violated the law.
Well, process of elimination, it can only be a couple people.
So.
Man, we've been on this for a while too, and at the end of the day, I think that what you're saying about the mayor is so true in terms of building empathy. Oh, I mean, it just hasn't happened, and unfortunately, when we see the practices of, of the old, of the status quo, that's what people are sick and tired of. And she's been having these meetings. Folks wanted the transparency level to turn up. They literally been asking for things that she could do, and we think that there are ways to actually bridge those gaps, but it seems unfortunate that out of her office, we're not really seeing enough of that momentum.
So let me ask you all this. Do you think she can sort of garner that empathy? I was thinking about Rahm Emanuel. When he was the mayor of Chicago, very similarly situated, where the black community was coming out against him. It was around re-election time, he ended up, donning a sweater and a fireside chat, and he was like, hey, I'm sorry. I messed up. I've done wrong, and we can all do better. Do you see that?
That was
well. I mean, I don't know if she can. I mean, that's the thing.
Pandering. We need authentic leadership. That's what we don't need someone to come and pander. Oh, you Negroes, we come here to make you happy.
Right.
We don't need pandering. We just need honest and sincere leadership. We need people who are man, it's okay. It's Jesse J lyric. Sometimes it's okay not to be okay, but you let people know it's like, you know what, we could do better here. Here's what we could do better. Let me take accountability for something that goes wrong in my business or in that case running the city and everything else. That's what we need. Yeah. So just putting on the sweater right before election time and hanging out with the black folks and then going down to this and that, that's just pandering for votes. Right. Seattle doesn't need that anymore. We need true leadership.
And to answer your question too, Marcus, I don't think that anything like that would work again. Once again, we see that she was kind of trying to do that, right? Putting her statements out. I've been meeting with the black community. I've been, trying to get in touch with, other black leaders. I've been meeting with the preachers. I've been doing this. It hasn't garnered that already. She's been trying to make those statements to really bridge those gaps. And again, like you said, she did not show her transparency when she really had the opportunity to do so. So doing it now, people are going to be like, man, nah, we don't want that, man. Swap that back. Like, you're trying too hard. She's going to get all of that. And it's going to be a day late and a dollar short at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? And so I feel like she kind of missed that window of opportunity to do something like that.
So we're running behind. And I see that moving forward, we're just going to have to give you a whole hour here.
Let's just do the day.
Let's just do it. I mean, that's what I'm saying. We gotta. We're actually gonna transition it into right now. We're gonna take a break, but we're going right into it right here. But give me 30 seconds, production. Quick question: what are your thoughts before we go to this interview I did earlier with Council President Gonzålez? What are some of your thoughts about the Council President?
Lorena Gonzålez, I think at the end of the day, she's trying to be as responsive as she possibly can. I like that she sort of does that Caesar Augustus style of leadership where it's hurry slowly. It means let's deliberate. We know what we need to do, but let's deliberate and let's be honest about the things that I don't know. And I personally like that about her.
All right. So here it is. I caught up with council member, council president Gonzålez. She told me she's like, I got a big office too.
Let's be real. She might be Mayor Gonzålez the way things going soon. But anyway.
Well, you never know. That means we got an exclusive interview early on. But here I am right here with council president Gonzålez. I think I'm definitely out of here. I've got to run. I'm getting out of here early. I don't know if you're going to be sitting in for the break after that, but we're going to do this interview with the council president and then come back, and then as Traeana's interview that she did with Lady A and her staff. And I'll give it to you, Alia, as they say. Let's roll it. Welcome back to the morning update show. Super excited here. We have City Council President Gonzålez. Good morning. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. You know what I'm saying? I'm moving up in the media world here in Seattle. Yeah, I used to cover City Hall for a lot of years and could never really get past the front door because I didn't have a credential. And now it's like I'm talking to like the city council president. So life is good.
Yeah, I've broken down a few doors in City Hall myself.
I've heard that, and actually, because I know our time is limited here, let's kind of start there. You know what I'm saying? One thing that's always good about crisis, I'm optimistic. A lot of people know, so I'm always looking at positive things. In crisis, there's an opportunity. And before all these different crises happening, COVID and now protest season, a lot of people didn't even pay attention to City Hall. You know what I'm saying? But now everybody is. Once you tell our viewers and our listeners out there a little bit about yourself and your path to City Hall.
Well, I just want to say thanks for having me on, and thanks for all the work that you're doing. Been super inspired to be able to follow the work that you've been doing online. So thanks for keeping us all informed on what's happening across the city and in the streets. Really appreciate it. So for me, I became a city council member in 2015, and am, I guess, relative to a lot of people, new to Seattle because I just moved here in 2002, but I'm originally from Washington State, grew up in central Washington State. My parents immigrated to this country from Mexico in the early 60s. And I grew up as a migrant farm worker along with my 3 brothers and 2 sisters. And, I kind of had a hustle all my life to get through high school, get through elementary school, eventually get to college. And to this day, I'm still the only person in my entire family, both immediate and extended, to have gone on to law school and become a lawyer, and was really proud of my legal career as a civil rights attorney for over 10 years, represented people against huge corporations, against the police department in police brutality cases across the state, including here in Seattle, and have just been really humbled and honored to be able to be a council member in this period of time and to be able to bring in all those experiences that are personal to me into so much of the policy making and the decision making that we have to make as a city council in these really historic periods of time.
Fantastic. Follow-up question on that. You said Central Washington. What part of Central Washington?
I am a lower Yakima Valley girl.
Hey,
so
Yakima Vegas.
Yakima Vegas. I grew up in Yakima County. I grew up in this little town called Grandview, born in Prosser, Washington. Yeah.
Prosser. Well, so Yakima, the city of Yakima, is very near and dear, especially to the Central District of Seattle, because Henry Beauchamp, the first Black mayor of Yakima, actually came to the rescue and saved Branch Villa, which was the last Black-owned elder nursing home in Seattle. That's right there on Martin Luther King Way. And so, it's a fondness of Henry Beauchamp and the history of Yakima. So, that's why I wanted to bring that up, because people in the Central District love Yakima. And they love, the legacy of the late Henry Beauchamp.
That's amazing. I didn't know that piece of history. Thank you so much for sharing it with me. It's amazing how much we all have. I like to also believe, like you, I'm positive, I like to believe that we share much more in common than we might otherwise think.
Definitely. And so now I have a question for you, because a lot of people might not know, how do you become a council president? Because I think the council member Sawant is the longest serving on the council, but you're the council president. So how does that work?
It's first and foremost, it's an election. So we pick the council president
Or you guys vote?
democratically amongst ourselves. So we vote as a city council. Folks get to express their interest one way or the other if they are interested. So a lot of people think that it's by seniority, and really it's about sort of it's both, I think, seniority and who is interested in serving as the council.
Right. And so, but Councilmember Sawant definitely has a bigger office, though.
Now I gotta say we compete on that front. We compete on that front.
All right, my bad. Man, the thing is that we had Kara Wade Hester on earlier in the week and did a deep dive on the budget, and also I had Dan Beekman from the Seattle Times on, because he actually follows the budget in City Hall. I'm a firm believer in staying in my lane, and I like to stay away from City Hall, to be honest with you. But I mean, clearly the budget is a big thing that's going on right now in Seattle. We don't really necessarily have the time for the deep dive on it, but maybe you can kind of update our viewers as to like what's going on with the budget and what's your position with the budget.
Yeah, right now we're in the middle of what's called rebalancing the budget, and that's wonk talk for we got problems in the bank account. We've spent more than what we have, and part of that is because of the pandemic. We are still in COVID-19 pandemic, massive economic crisis that the pandemic has sort of caused, right? And so as a result of that, we have a tax system that forces us to rely on sales tax, on property taxes, on other kinds of taxes that come from working class people. And when working class people don't have jobs, they're not making any money, and our revenues go down. So that's why we're in this process of this summer having to take another look at the 2020 budget, the rest of it, to see how we can backfill some of the deficits that we have in our budget. So we're in the middle of that process, I'd say. We have about 3 weeks left of our deliberations before we decide what should ultimately be cut. So right now the mayor has sent us her proposal. It is just a proposal. City Council has the full authority of passing a budget and approving a budget. And so ultimately it'll be our call as to what gets funded and what doesn't. And there's a lot of priorities for us as a city council, but I would say that this moment in time around the race reckoning across the country requires us to prioritize first and foremost the calls around defunding the Seattle Police Department in order to invest and scale up community-based public safety strategies that we know will work better at keeping our community safe.
Right. So 2 questions. One, just so people know how the system works, is that the city council, you got a budget from the mayor, and I'm sure in some years people like, and in some years they dislike or whatever, but then the city council puts their budget together, and the city council is able to vote on the budget. And does the mayor then have to actually approve? Is it kind of like the legislature, or is it like you guys vote and you just roll out?
It's more like a legislature. I mean, the city council is like it's the city's legislature. And so we do approve it. The mayor has veto power. If she vetoes the budget, she has to veto the whole budget.
So there's no line item.
There's no line item vetoing like the governor has. The governor has that power, but the mayor doesn't. So if there's one thing in that budget she doesn't like, she can't just object to that thing. She's got to veto the whole thing. And so we get the power of being able to sort of put our priorities in there. And obviously it takes a lot of negotiation and back and forth to come up with a budget that's going to work for both us and for the mayor.
Yeah, I think in a lot of years, everybody's worried about the budget. They fall apart. But this year, my friend. So speaking of that, and I wanted to come back to what you just talked about the police part, But I think that because everybody is keeping their eye on the ball around like police budget and defund and everything else, what are some of the other areas where there might be cuts just because of COVID and everything else that people should kind of be aware there might be a change in services, or what other areas are you trying to augment? Because like I said, everybody's following the police thing and they're not really thinking about the other services, especially out of the general fund that provide services to the city.
Man, I really appreciate that question because it is really important to remember that it's a full budget. So it impacts literally every type of service that the city provides right now. I think that the areas we're taking a close look at in order to protect our investments around education. Education was super important to me and my family as Mexican immigrants. Like we relied on things like pre-K and affordable childcare and nurses coming to your home. And those are all things that we currently budget for that, you know, could see some cuts. Another huge thing that people need to be paying attention to is proposed cuts to transportation, including transit services. So all across the city, there are infrastructure needs, you know, better sidewalks, safer streets, you know, better lighting, all these things that really help us get around the city safely. And there are quite a significant number of cuts being proposed by the mayor to transportation safety and infrastructure projects across the city. And then the last thing I would say is that, you know, there's always a concern about hiring freezes across the city, because one of the biggest ways that we get services out is through our people. And so right now the budget has a lot of savings in it because of a decision to not hire any more people. And we might also have to see some furloughs, some people being laid off next year. And so, you know, once we start getting into cutting people or choosing to not hire people, we can see sort of a negative effect, I'd say, on how people can access services and how many services people can actually get.
Right. Well, the second question I have around budget is that, you know, they have a saying in my neighborhood: if was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. But I'm still going to ask you an if question because it's hypothetical. Is, you know, if it wasn't COVID and the city had a windfall right now, or, you know, a nice chunky rainy day fund that was still there. When it comes around this issue of police and defund police, I think that me personally, when I see it, I think that a lot of people, even the police that we interview and other people are like, yeah, something needs to change, right? If the city had budget, would something be innocent? Would something be feasible to launch both things at the same time? Because right now it's like, okay, we need the money from the police. The city's $200 million in the hole. We need the money from the police. That money over there is going to go to community. And even a lot of police people are saying like money should go to community. And I think one of the things people are saying is like timeline and things like that and instantaneous of it. If there was a surplus, do you think a lot of your city council members would be like, okay, let's start funding community right now as we go in a parallel process with police, or it'd still be like, nah, we need that bag. We need to put the bag in the community.
I think there would still be a pressure to look at the line items of money we've been giving to the police department. And I say that because, you know, as I'm talking to movement leaders and as I'm watching this civil rights movement unfold, not just here at home, but across the country and frankly, across the world, people are really saying one thing very clearly, and that's that we have, as government, invested for far too long and way too much in armed law enforcement responses to things that should be and could be dealt with investments in community-based public safety strategies and interventions that we know work. Things like Choose 180 program or community passageways or creative justice, or, I mean, the LEAD program, right? There are so many other programs that meet people where they're at that don't require an armed law enforcement process, that actually do meet the needs of the people that are coming into contact with armed law enforcement right now. So I think, I think that setting aside whether there's a surplus or a deficit, people still want to see a massive reduction in dollars that are being given to police departments. And it's not just here in Seattle, it's across the country. That call is across the country. So I think, for us as the bureaucrats, it'd be a little easier to make the numbers work if there was a surplus. And I think the difference for us is that it makes it a lot more challenging to do when you're in a deficit context, but it has to be, I think it would be done this way regardless of whether there was a surplus or a deficit.
Right. Rio, I think the thing around defund, and I see that there's more clarity kind of coming in, excuse me, from the defund side right now. But early on, the slogan was just defund. And, it was just, it's like a blunt instrument. But one thing that Rio Johnson said is he was like, well, just look at it as people are making an investment in law enforcement or public safety. There's an investment by the citizens in public safety, and the citizens are feeling that they're not getting a return on investment, and now they want to reallocate the funds that are invested in public safety. Mm-hmm. It was like, it was like one sentence and a half, but you know what I'm saying? It kind of like, breaks it all down. That is that kind of how you see it? Is that, there's an investment that's made by the city, by the taxpayers in the public safety, and that in the current system and infrastructure, that return on investment might not be reaching the goals that the city council or the citizens want. And so you want to reallocate those funds into different programs that might work better for a return.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty, logical argument. It makes a lot of sense, and I think that's part of it for me. And I think it is really important to say, like, we for people who keep arguing that we have to keep public safety the way it is now. I just, there's the big question in my mind is, well, who is the current system keeping safe? And I think that the answer to that has become very clear to me that Black and Brown and Indigenous community members don't feel like, even though they're paying into providing, getting these services, they certainly don't feel like they're safer because of the public safety model that we currently have. And so there's a question about whether we should keep doing it. And for me, the answer to that question is no, we shouldn't keep doing it the way it is. Not only because it's not a smart investment, but because we're not seeing the benefits that we'd like out of it, but also because it's literally costing certain communities, Black and Brown communities, lives. Like people are dying at a disproportionate number at the hands of police violence. And that's got to be sort of the motivating reason as to why we need to move away from investing in law enforcement in the way that we have historically and traditionally invested in them.
Right. Just one or two more questions, Council President. Chief Best last week wrote a letter to Mayor Durkin. And it's interesting because Mayor Durkin looks like she put Chief Best under the bus yesterday, talking about this charter. But anyway, Chief Best wrote a letter and said that the Seattle Police Department hasn't really been part of these discussions. And yesterday we had Michael Solon of the SPOG on as well. And, one of the things that the SPOG is talking about is they're like, hey, they're not involved in the discussion. One, I just wanted to be able to confirm with you is are you talking to the chief and the union and things like that? And if yes, then okay, where's that at? But two, if you're not, then what's your position? And like, hey, we don't need to talk to the police. We don't need to talk to them at this time. We know how to move these budgets and move things forward. It would just be interesting to get some clarification about whether communication is happening or not, or whether it's even required or not.
Yeah, I think they're two separate issues. So the chief answers to the mayor, right. And so the mayor is ultimately the charter even refers to the mayor as the chief law enforcement officer in the city. Certainly, I've been having a lot of conversations with Mayor Durkin about what has transpired over the last several weeks and sort of what could happen in the coming weeks in our budget. I'd also say that I know, and I have talked to some of my colleagues about conversations with Chief Best that may be happening, and I understand that there have been conversations. I have had personal conversations with Chief Best. I would say that it's fair to say that I haven't had, granular detail conversations with her about the work that we are hoping to accomplish. In large part, that's because we're still developing the details. There isn't anything to share with her yet and to talk with her yet. Now that we have a 13-page plan of details from community, we're in a better position to talk to the chief and the mayor about what these proposals are and what the outcomes could be.
Right, because it's almost, well, I mean, from a media person, we get the information as it comes to us. It was like defund was like defund, and then the mayor and the chief were like, oh, okay, you want defund? Well, here's what we're gonna cut and everything else. And then there was a gap in time between like, man, Southwest Precinct, crimes against elders, auto theft, like all these things get cut. And so, then it was like, well, you know what? This is the list that's been comprised because, hey, basically nobody at the city council talked to us. They want to cut this much money. This is what has to go. And so maybe I'm hearing what you're saying now is that the defund side is back like, oh, okay, now here's our proposal.
Yeah, I mean, this is always, it's always important for us to remember that movements always start out with a clear demand, right? And how we accomplish that, or what it ultimately means and what it looks like, are things that evolve and happen through ongoing organizing and movement building. I think that's exactly what's happening right now. And so, I think that the letter from the chief to the mayor was certainly a list of the parade of horribles that could happen if we defund the Seattle Police Department and do nothing more. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about reducing the budget of the Seattle Police Department meaningfully and significantly, and creating capacity within community to reduce violence, to have a civilian-led 911 system, and to really meet the safety needs of people in their communities with a non-armed police response. That scaling down and scaling up model approach is going to take time. We recognize that. This isn't going to be like flipping a switch. And so saying that it's like flipping a switch is it's just not true. And that's not what our intent is. Now, on your second question about our conversations with the union, we are management in this union relationship. And I've had conversations with leadership within the Seattle Police Management Association. I want to, thank Lieutenant Bachler for proactively reaching out to me, wanting to talk to me about it. And I was happy to accept that invitation. I can't say that I have received a similar invitation from Officer Solon, but I also have to say that from a management perspective, whatever it is we have to do that impacts the collective bargaining agreement, we're going to have to enter into, at a minimum, impact, negotiations with the union. And there is a proper place to do that. It's a formal process to do that. And so I think it's a little disingenuous for Officer Solon to be claiming that somehow these conversations could be happening at a policy level right now, when he knows and I know that there's a formal labor negotiations process that is going to have to take place, where there's lawyers beyond our imagination that are going to be working on these issues.
Okay. One more question, but real quick. I know you're plugged in down there at City Hall, especially being like, council president and privy to a lot of information. You might feel comfortable sharing this with us. We're trying to figure out who ordered the East Precinct closed, because no one is really willing to say that. And there's lots of talk about charters and everything. And clearly in the city charter, it says that like every area is supposed to have a precinct and everything else. And nobody's willing to say who closed the precinct. Maybe you might be able to share with us, maybe not, but I thought it was worth the ask.
I don't got a name, but we're looking for one. I know Councilmember Herbold asked our Office of Police Accountability to do an internal investigation on a lot of questions related to who closed the East Precinct and who made that decision. My conversation with Chief Best, she indicated to me that it was the incident commander at East Precinct, but I still don't have the name of who that person is, but we're as interested as you are. So just if you find out before I do, you make sure you let me know.
You know, I'm gonna let everybody know.
Let me know first, though. I want the scoop.
I got you. My last question for you today, Council President, is that, you know, I mean, interesting enough, yesterday I walked past, and I shared a text message with my colleagues, but I walked past I-5 South, where the incident happened there on the freeway. It was my first time walking. I don't live far from our studios here, but it was my first time walking since then, because every day if I walk, I have to walk past, you know what I'm saying, what happened over there on the freeway with Summer Taylor. And so I usually take an Uber just so I don't walk past it. But yesterday I walked past it and I kind of said a prayer. And I was like, man, God bless the people who've passed away, the people who've been traumatized, the people whose lives have been changed forever, and hopeful that the seeds planted today during this protest season will blossom into the Emerald City that we all deserve. And my question to you is, what does the Emerald City that we all deserve look like to you?
Oh my gosh, that's a big question. You know, there's a proverb that says they thought they buried us, but they didn't know I was a seed. And I think it's important for us to remember how resilient our Brown, Black, and Indigenous communities are, how strong we actually are because of centuries of oppression in this country and in other places in the world. And for me, I think that the Emerald City is one where, and I'm a mom now, it's one where, you know, I don't have to worry about the safety of my daughter in the city in terms of being profiled because she's half Mexican. It's a world where moms don't have to tell their stories over and over again about the anguish of losing their Black son or their Black daughter to preventable police violence. It's a city where we can have prosperity and feel like we actually, as Black, Brown, and Indigenous community members, like we actually belong and own a part of this city, that this is not just a community that we're tolerated in, but that it's actually ours because we helped to build it and because we've helped to shape it. And I just, you know, I'm hopeful. I am really, truly hopeful in this moment. And I don't think I've ever been this inspired. And as a civil rights attorney, I've always been a little jealous that I didn't actually grow up in a real civil rights movement like in the 60s. But this is it. This is it for us. This is a moment in history, and we have an opportunity to be on the right side of history. And that means being uncomfortable, and it means rebuilding what our society is and asking tough questions, being uncomfortable, and building a city for the future, for the period of time when we will no longer be here. And I'm hopeful we can do that.
Well, Council President Gonzalez, you know what I'm saying? Here's to me and you both hoping for that better Emerald City in the future. You know what I'm saying? The not too far off future.
Yeah, let's hope. We can do this.
Man.
Well, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. Obviously, our show is running a little bit long today, but we were excited to show you guys the full interviews that Omari did, obviously with Council President Gonzålez, and this next upcoming interview. And I know I could see in the chat so many of you, saying, yes, Gonzålez for mayor, like, yes, go Omari. And it's very true. I think what a lot of us in this city, in this beautiful Emerald City, have been asking for is transparency, and especially with regard to our elected officials. I think in terms of understanding how city council comes to grips with decision making and how they utilize their public comments, it's important for people to understand those processes so we can believe in them, have trust in them, and trust in the folks that we actually put in positions of power to really govern that power and wield it on our behalf. So shout out to Omari and Council President Gonzålez for that great interview, and just again giving us a glimpse into the thought processes behind her and how they're moving forward. I'm really excited too, you guys. Our city is seeing so many different things. We've had CHOP and CHAZ and all this momentum regarding civil unrest and people really asking for change. They want something that is different. They don't want a system that prioritizes one set of people over other sets of people. And that's what we see time and time again. And in this next interview that I was able to get with Lady A and one of her producers, John, it is important that we understand the perspective behind a performer who has put herself on the line in terms of performing. She's been raising through the ranks in her own volition. Like she said in her interview, she said she may not be able to pack all of these big houses, but she has a solid 400 fans who will show up anywhere that she's performing. And that is huge. And it takes time to build. It takes lots and lots of hours to perfect your brand, your craft. And she's been doing a lot of this with a lot of support, but a lot on her own. And so we wanted to give Lady A time to really help us understand her position. So to give you some background, Lady Antebellum is a large country band. They have millions of fans, all over the world. They decided that they wanted to change their name, as the word antebellum really connotates the slavery South. And so they said, hey, due to all of this social, racial injustice, we don't want our name to be connected to anything like that. So they wanted to change their name to Lady A and just shorten it up. And Lady A is a performer who is Seattle based, but performs all over. And she has been building her brand as Lady A, underground and upcoming independent singer and brand. She's been building that for 30 years. And so she definitely has her perspective on now this clash that we're seeing in the Rolling Stone. She's been getting coverage all over, but we wanted to actually do our local coverage and understand from her perspective and her team how they're fighting this fight against such a big name like Lady Antebellum. Shout out to Lady A and John. Thank you guys for giving us some time. And because we are running over, you guys, I'm going to actually say peace out right now. And we're going to end the show after this interview. Thank you guys for staying with us on this amazing long Friday. It was great content we wanted to get out to you guys. So we appreciate you guys for staying tuned with us. As always, we'll be back next week, Monday, bright and early at 11 a.m. You're watching the Morning Update Show. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm Trae Holiday, and I am a host and producer for the Morning Update Show. So we thank you so much for coming on to tell your story. So just for the viewers, let's give them some background. I read your story. I understand that you have been performing as Lady A for the past 20 years and 30 years. Wow. And the band Lady Antebellum decided, hey, we need to change our name to support kind of this racial, justice. And so they thought, let's change our name to Lady A. But you have been Lady A for the last 30 years. So you were like, hey, wait a minute. Now your name is getting buried on Google searches. Tell the audience how you're feeling now in terms of where you are now in this kind of case.
Okay. And John's waiting to come in. So It started when on June 11th, when Lady Antebellum decided to change their name from Lady Antebellum to the nickname that they say their fans call them, Lady A. I received a phone call from Rolling Stone from
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm Trae Holiday, and I am a host and producer for the Morning Update Show. So we thank you so much for coming on to tell your story. So just for the viewers, let's give them some background. I read your story. I understand that you have been performing as Lady A for the past 20 years and 30 years. Wow. And the band Lady Antebellum decided, hey, we need to change our name to support kind of this racial, justice. And so they thought, let's change our name to Lady A. But you have been Lady A for the last 30 years. So you were like, hey, wait a minute. Now your name is getting buried on Google searches. Tell the audience how you're feeling now in terms of where you are now in this kind of case.
okay. And John's waiting to come in. So it started when on June 11th, when Lady Antebellum decided to change their name from Lady Antebellum to the nickname that they say their fans call them, Lady A. I received a phone call from Rolling Stone magazine that same day on June 11th, and I was shocked, that they were changing their name. But okay, so if you're going to change your name, like I tell everybody, I'm going to read you their statement. Their statement says, and these dear fans, as a band, we have strived for our music to be a refuge, inclusive of all. We've watched and listened more than ever these last few weeks, and our hearts have been stirred with conviction, our eyes open wide to injustices, inequality, biases Black women and men have always faced and continue to face every day. Now blind spots we didn't even know existed have been revealed. So that lets me know that they were repentant and that they wanted to change their name. My question is, how does Lady Antebellum, who you say, I didn't say it, Lady Antebellum said it, had racist connotations to it, and you wanted to get away from it and be an ally, and your heart was stirred, and think that changing it and shortening it to Lady A, where's the change?
That's a really valid point. That is a valid point. And I definitely want to welcome John on. John, welcome to this interview. She was just telling me a little bit about you. You are the original Lady A's Seattle producer, yes?
Yes, that's correct.
So what is it that you have to weigh in on this, John? I just want to also respond too quickly. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, I was reading about the word and the term antebellum in the middle of the night last night, preparing to speak to you because I'm like, how have they been in the music industry for so long with a name like that? And I get it, their audience may not have been, opposed to the name, but in general, there's been a lot of racial unrest. And so this is, maybe there's a surge of it that is making them want to address this. But I agree with you there that just shortening it to A, to the initial, doesn't actually do that fully. John, what are your thoughts here?
My thoughts on this is this: we have a group of people that want to banish racism without quitting racism, right? So the whole thing is that it's not enough to be woke. It takes action, and even they say their nickname is Lady A. Listen, changing a nickname doesn't change your actions. Your actions should match up, right, with your intent. And this whole thing is that Lady A has been Lady A since I've been knowing her, right? It's her brand, but she's a woman about action, right? And Lady Antebellum is just trying to come in and take the name, but they don't want to take the action away. Listen, sis, Lady A, that's something we haven't even discussed. They want to take your name, but if they do that, are they going to take all the things that go along with your name? No. Right. And it's like we've said it all along. You know what? Lady A has said this. Sometimes all we have is our name. And they want to take away that definition. My goodness. Lady A, that's a whole different conversation we're going to have.
You know, this is the thing. They want to share the name. That was their whole thing. They want to coexist. So I want to make sure everybody understands that.
Yeah.
They didn't come in saying they want to take the name. They said they want to coexist. And our question was, myself, John, my Seattle producer, and then my Mississippi producer, Dexter Allen, we were all on the call with the lawyers and with my, at that time, pro bono lawyer. And they were talking about this coexistence and how it was going to be wonderful. And my question was always, I said, I don't want to coexist. What does that look like? They talked some more. What does coexistence look like? For the people in the back, what does coexistence look like? Nobody ever answered that question. So then the artists decide to get together, because sometimes, you know, when you get lawyers involved, they're going to do what lawyers do.
Yeah.
We decided they wanted to talk to us artist to artist. And sincerely, I went in thinking, okay, let's do this. And we did, and the same subjects were brought up. What does coexistence look like? Oh, it's going to be great. We're going to, I think we should do a song together. And I think we should, you know, we're going to make changes all over the world. People are going to, this is what they're saying. And I'm still saying, so what does coexistence look like? We're going to make, you know, because I said, when I go on Google before all this, it was Lady Antebellum and there was me, Lady A. Easy to find, no mix up, nothing. But nobody, and I said it 3 times. I do everything in 3s. What does coexistence look like? And we even made suggestions. You know, they never brought anything to the table. So I think I'm getting ahead of myself, because there was the one contract that came and it said, we'll do our best efforts to make sure you don't disappear. That was my whole concern. I said, if we're both Lady A, because you got 40,000 fans, God bless you. I'm happy for you. But then you're going to erase me, because 2 Lady A's, the algorithms aren't going to work.
Right. And therein lies, I think, one of the biggest hurdles that you were experiencing, and what really propelled you, not only just about protecting your name, a brand that you've built for 30 years, but also literally that's how people recognize and resonate with your brand. They know you as that name, right? And so one of the things that it looks like now, in terms of moving forward, you know, they, like you said, you know, they're wanting to share the name. But I think that when you're talking about the algorithm, it really hits a key note here. And I read in the article that it's looking like you're going to have to showcase that you literally utilize your name in terms of ticket sales, the way that, you know, on the marquee, things like that. So how are you guys as a team preparing all of that data and bringing all that stuff to the table? I'm sure you have those things.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been Lady A for a long time. So I've, you know, advertised and did all these shows and all that kind of thing. And it will never come up to what they have made.
Yeah.
They have a machine behind them. If I had a big money machine behind me, I'd be making all kinds of money too. But I don't. This is what gets me. Had you never said that Black Lives Mattered, had you never said that let me read their statement, not mine, theirs. As a band, we have strived for our music to be a refuge, inclusive of all. Of all. That's your statement, not mine. You want to be an ally. So if you want to be an ally, that requires you sometimes have to give up something. If you want to be an ally in this day and age, that requires that you put action behind your words. Because I have struggled, worked hard. I work a day job. I was hustling. I was making, going out and hustling shows for my band, getting a band together, paying for rehearsal halls, everything that goes into being an independent artist. Just because I don't make as much money as you does not make me irrelevant.
Right.
My CDs are under Lady A. You just had one CD come out as Lady A and totally erased me. The only reason why I'm showing up now is because of the popularity of the story itself. If this story dies down, so will my popularity on Google platforms, Amazon, iTunes, all of that. And they want to say Black Lives Matter, our names matter, our experiences matter, our artistry matters, our community matters, our fans matter. I don't care that they have 40,000 fans. I have 4,000. I have 400 in Seattle that will come to a show and the only reason why it's 400 is because that's the only place I can afford to put them in when I'm selling tickets. So none of that matters to me. This is what people have taken from Black people, Indigenous people of this land, and people of color. They have consistently taken our culture, our music, our land, and our names, and sometimes our families.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah, this is not just about me. This is about me standing up for every independent artist out there, every Black, Indigenous person of this land and person of color who has constantly had something taken from them just because you can. But again, I didn't say Black Lives Matter. You did.
So that's where I want to get into, because clearly you guys were doing some negotiation. There was some, as you said, your big point was, what does coexistence look like? And it sounds like you never really got a full answer to that. And so you didn't have the greatest maybe trust in that process to say, yeah, let's just go ahead and do it. So really, you're really standing up for something larger than yourself. And even in your request for the 10 million, you specify that 5 million was to rebuild your brand, and another 5 was really to give to other independent artists that actually will be fighting this very same struggle. I want to hear from both of you guys about how important it is, your one case, how important you feel this is to the larger musical movement.
John?
Okay, how important it is to the larger musical movement. So, because what this is, if this case was to get resolved outside of court, it would be a big win, not only for independent artists, but for big record companies to see the value of independent artists. Because there's a shift in the musical industry with Lady A, the independent artist. Look at all the love that she's getting worldwide just from this story. So it's so much bigger than even today's artists. This is for the artists to come, because there's power to the independent artists through this, because like Lady A, she's built her brand from the ground up. Lady Antebellum has had Lady Antebellum, the artist, and Lady Antebellum, the corporation, backing them, right? Lady A is the artist and the corporation. She's done this all from the ground up herself. So she's going to win. Lady A is going to win this. My personal hope is that it's done out of court, right? Because so much good could come out of this if Lady Antebellum was just simply to say, you know what, we made another mistake. Lady A, we're terribly sorry. And I want them to say these exact words: Lady A, we're sorry. We apologize. We're going to change our name. And we're also going to do a song together still, right? Because that would be a win for the whole music industry to see this big country artist come together with an independent artist, a strong Black woman, and do this song together. The whole world needs that kind of hope, right? So that would be a win-win. That would be a win-win for everybody.
I want everybody to understand also that we didn't just go in and I didn't just go in and decided I wanted $10 million.
Right.
That is not what happened.
Right.
We were supposed to be in negotiation.
Right.
And talking with each other. They sent one contract back that said, we'll do our best efforts to make sure you don't disappear. What does that mean? What does that mean? Again, for the people in the back, what does that mean? And I can't stress that enough. We continue to ask questions and we get dismissed. On my job, no matter what it is, except they don't dismiss me on my job no more because they know. But, I'm a person, I want answers. I need answers before I make a decision. My bandmates, John's been with me for 20 plus years. I'm detailed, no, I didn't do a trademark. But back in the 80s, wasn't the smartest thing, but I didn't do it. I got it right here. You know, I worked, I grinded, I had sleepless nights. I was waking John up in the middle of the night, like, oh, I got an idea. You know, this is what we can do. I got an idea. He's been patient with me. He's always said, God is going to increase your territory. This is God. This don't have nothing to do with me. And it's bigger than me, like he said. But we tried. The second contract that came back said, it didn't say anything any different than we'll give our best effort. And again, we're like, wait a minute. So even on the phone with the artist, I said, okay, you want to coexist, and I'm not really understanding, but you know, let me think about this. Why don't you be Lady A the band, and I'll be Lady A the artist? I mean, if people type it in, they know exactly who they want to go to.
Mm-hmm. They wouldn't do it.
Nothing.
Cricket.
No response. No response.
No response. Not that they wouldn't do it. No response, or they went on to the next subject. So see, my discernment tells me you're not really, you already got your mind made up about what you want to do, right? So then I was getting to the point, because this was disrupting my life. Mm-hmm. You know, the news, you know, all the news. I thank God for everybody who has interviewed us and wants to hear the story and talk to us. And, finally I was like, I got to get back to my life. I have a panel called The Truth is Loud. And my single, The Truth is Loud, came out on the 27th of June. And they had a CD that came out the week before. So when my single came out, you couldn't find it anywhere, which is what I was talking about the entire time.
Yeah.
As soon as you put something out as Lady A, not going to be able to find me anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So finally I just said, well, and John had made to the team, had made this request. Well, maybe if you guys if your management company took Lady A under your management company, then you could rebrand me, start, and then we could still do the tour together, and we'd be under the same management company, and people could see us working together. They didn't take any of our suggestions, and they never made any suggestions. Uh-huh. So my thing was, look, I got a life. So look, it's going to cost me to rebrand myself. Right? CDs, rebrand, Google searches. Right. People don't know what it goes into branding yourself. Right. So I'm worth more than $5 billion. I don't care what anybody out there says. If you don't have value on your life, I can't help you. I'm a valuable person. Right. No matter what you think. So, but I was willing to say, you know what? I could settle for $5 million. I could rebrand myself. I can help my community. I can help other artists, right? Take the other $5 million. Since you said Black Lives Matter, we're going to put that in your name as a charity. Black Lives Matter. We're going to take some more money, give to the seniors and my youth causes that I do here in Seattle. And then we're going to give, some money to any artist that needs legal help, that finds themselves in a position from across the country, not just Seattle, from across the country. That would be a charity for them. But you want to make it seem like I'm the angry Black woman who just all of a sudden got greedy, as if I wasn't happy and don't have money. See, this is what white privilege allows you to think, that I don't have any money, that I don't have a life, that I'm not happy. So many people have asked to do a GoFundMe for me. I don't need that. Cooley LLP, thank you, Lord, for sending them, took my case pro bono, and they are working in my favor. And I thank God for that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so really it the misnomer, as people read the article, coming out and literally it's like, oh, well, she asked for 10 million. Who does she think she is? But, at the end of the day, I think you've laid out the pathway for why you were asking for that. And also, too, what actually isn't in that article is what you just shared with us, that you guys were trying to work with them. And the negotiation it seems as if you weren't getting the responses back.
This is when the negotiation broke down, when I asked for the money, but this is what people don't know. Rather, when you're in a negotiation, you go back and forth, right? But when I asked for the 5 and 5, rather than sending the contract back to my lawyer and said, no, we'll give you $5 or we're not going to give you anything. They didn't send that contract back to my lawyer. They went to Billboard magazine. Billboard magazine called my lawyer and said, did you know that they are about to sue Anita White, AKA Lady A?
Wow.
See, that's what privilege allows you to do, because you decided that I'm too much to deal with. I had a 16-year-old, a woman sent me an email the other day and said her 16-year-old daughter said, Mom, this is what happens when Black women speak up for ourselves. They try to bully us. And I wish I had the exact words she said, but it made me cry, because here's this 16-year-old girl watching me and sees me standing up for myself. Those are the people I'm responsible to.
Let me just say that too, because I think you hit the nail on the head, and I know we're going to wrap up here quickly. I know you only had a minute, but really it sounds to me, and this is, if we go back into history, we will see the cultural appropriation. We will see them stealing songs. We will see all of that, the rhythm, the flow, our cadence, so many things in terms of music that we have seen. And we know, the Little Richards of the world, we know those stories. And it just sounds like, honestly, like what you just said there, a 16-year-old girl, looking up to you and saying, please stand up for yourself. Don't let that machine wipe you out. You have worked hard for your name and your brand, and you deserve to continue creating music and beautiful creative works under your brand of Lady A. So I just thank you for giving us you guys' perspective here. We are, as a media company, we're reaching out to them to try to get their perspective. That's what we want to do. We want to try to be balanced, and not be on one side or the other. But I just thank you for sharing the things that were not in there and the insights that you both have. And honestly, I'm a Black woman. I'm an activist. I'm an organizer. So honestly, I understand the struggle that you have laid out for us. And I just thank you guys.
Sometimes all we have is our name.
Yeah. So
Don't
true.
take that from us.
Yeah, we learned that in Roots, right? I mean, look, Kunta was not trying to be Kunta, okay?
I'm gonna change his name, and that's where I am. I'm like, I want to say that. I want to give a shout out to Margot Price, the country singer Margot Price, that went on the Grand Ole Opry and said that Lady Antebellum and Grand Ole Opry should ask me to come and open there. Yeah, that's an ally. That's bravery in allyship. You have to give up something to be an ally. Privilege allows you to think that you don't. Lady Antebellum still has a chance here. I hold no ill will towards anybody. That's their machine working for them, but they have a heart and they have eyes. And if their eyes have been opened and their hearts have been convicted against, again, their words, don't take something from a Black person. And you want to share it, and that doesn't work, because as it stands now, the suit that they have brought would not allow me to sing in the same city they're singing in, because my name is Lady A and their name's Lady A. Why are you gonna? Isn't that like redlining?
Yeah, right there. I mean, you know what?
I'm just asking. I'm not saying. I'm just asking.
Right.
Come on, I didn't say it. You said it. So I'm going to bring out. I'm an activist. I'm a race and social justice worker at my job. So I'm gonna ask the hard questions, and I'm gonna keep asking them until you answer.
Yeah, well, I just thank you guys so much. Thank you for giving us some background on this. As a local Seattle, it's clearly you're national. You're talking about Mississippi and Seattle. I love it. I definitely want to reach out to you more and stay connected, because me personally, I'm become a fangirl a little. So I just appreciate you for coming on. Thank you so much, John, for joining us and bringing your perspective into the discussion. I think it's very important.
see us. You can get my music at ladyabbyblues.com. Also, I would love to have you on one of my panels on The Truth is Loud. Please. So go to thetruthisloud.info. You can get information, see videos. Our next panel is August 1st. We are going to have another one after that. The first one was June 27th, the same day that The Truth is Loud CD single came out. And I just put it in for Song of the Year for the Blues Music Awards. So keep us in prayer, keep my team in prayer. We thank you so much.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day.